As far as what I'm currently thinking about music and grief, like I think I've always kind of known that music can be like a friend and a guide when you're going through things. I mean, you feel that, in high school when your girlfriend breaks up with you and you just listen to Pink Floyd all day, or, getting older, you lose somebody and or life is tough and you go, I'm going to go for a walk and listen to this beautiful music. It's like, you kind of always instinctively know that that music is there for you in that way. But I've actually been studying a lot this past year about like the neuroscience of what happens in our brains and our bodies when we go through grief and trauma, and how this is something I learned from the writings of John Thompson, that that one of the ways that our body has been created to heal is through the experience of beauty, and that grief and trauma slows the growth of neurons in our brains, and the experience of beauty reignites the growth of neurons. And so in a real way, like music and beauty in general, the experience of life and nature and friendships, and that actually is doing constructive, physical, tangible work in the healing of our minds and bodies. And that's the way that God created us to be. And so it's, when you listen to that sad song, you listen to music in those moments, it's not just that you kind of feel better, it's that it's literally doing something transformative in your very spirit. That's why you go for a hike and you feel better. It's because it's not just that now I feel better. It's literally your brain has been working and healing and like regrowing where it had stopped growing.
Music is a universal language. Music takes us from point A to B all the way to Z and back and forth. Music is a catalyst. Music is a roadmap, if you will, to navigate. And I'm not even talking about like just lyrics, just the chord structure, just the minor chord, the major chord. All those things play a role in our makeup as humans, the vibrations. And my personal perspectives on music and grief and lament has taught me a lot. It's taught me to see it from an angle I might not have seen it before. Over COVID, I lost 3 aunts, 3 mothers in my life that are very, very close to me. And I'm still walking through a grieving process. And I think music definitely has reminded me of them, has given me hope. Music has allowed me to see it in a gratitude and a grateful, in a mad, angry, in a sensitive, reflective perspective. It's also allowed me to give it back to God. And there's this interesting thing with music where when you listen to a sad song, it actually makes you happy. Because if the sad song made you sad, you would stop listening to it. That's just the way our body is made. If it's sad or hurting or harmful, we stop. There are songs that bring me to a place of gratitude as I think about lament and loss and grieving. There are songs that I've written that the lyrics and the poetry have carried me through times of pain and sorrow. There's been many murders, many violent acts of hate on our planet, and sometimes they're close to home, and sometimes they're not so close. And there's different levels of grief and perspective. I think music allows us to find humanity with our brothers and our sisters, to step a little closer to them, to hear their hearts from where they are and where they stand, from where they see, to hear their stories. Music is beautiful. Music is definitely the universal language. If I had an invitation to anyone listening or watching, I would say I'd invite you to listen to a different kind of music, a different sound, listen to a different lyric, a different genre, if you will. I think that will allow you to experience humanity in a much, much different way. So, love you guys. Peace.
My father died last March at the age of 96, and I loved him dearly and respected him deeply. He was a really fine preacher and poet and storyteller, but he was probably best of all a really fine singer. Because his death was not unexpected, it was just kind of a slow train when he died, as all of us were there. But it was hymns that we sang in his room during hospice that brought us close. We're a tight family anyway, but brought us closer. And it was listening back to recordings over the next few months of him singing a lot of those same hymns and sacred songs that both made the grief go deeper and made the sorrow more bearable, I guess. The songs themselves were generally upbeat or hopeful, hymns. There's maybe more lament hymns than I'm thinking of right now, but those weren't particularly the ones we sang. But just hearing his voice singing those songs, just music has a way of doing something that no other art form can do. And it really was a comfort in a long season of grief.
Well, I think the fact that songs of sorrow existed and were accessible to me during the season of my life when I began to choose my own music to listen to in my early teens told me a couple valuable things. One is that I'm not the only sad person in the world, that it's not unique to me. And two, that human sorrow is important enough not only to talk about, but apparently to write about and to sing about. We seem to need it. We are either writing the songs or we are listening to the songs. And the music that tended to land with me and still lands with me is not in a hurry to contrive a happy ending or tie it all up and insist that it makes sense, but rather to let it be, let it sound as dark as we actually feel. And I think that gave me permission to not rush through my own heartache, but to be in it, to be with it in the details of this present moment and let myself feel it. And it also, I think, gave me permission to believe that it might not destroy me, that it was something that I might not be able to change right now, might not need to change right now, but that maybe I could lean into the feeling, pick up a pen, and write my own songs, which is a way of creating order from chaos. It's working things out on the page. And when I work things out on the page, I am also working things out in my own heart. And again, not to fix anything, but to be present with myself. So hearing other people's honest expressions in music paved the way for me to create my own honest expressions in music. And to understand that my pain matters and that I don't need to bypass it or be embarrassed or ashamed of it, but that it's a valid and unavoidable aspect of the human experience, and that I could, in fact, channel it into a kind of beauty.
Yeah, I think if I think through all the grief and lament that I've experienced in my life and I'm currently experiencing, as a songwriter, I was thinking about this yesterday. I have actually lamented and expressed my emotion through songwriting more than I have in talking with people. Like I can cry at the drop of a hat when I'm singing a song about lament or about hard stuff in life or writing a song. I think of Keith Green's song, "My eyes are dry, my faith is old, my heart is hard, my prayers are cold, and I know how I ought to be, alive to you, but dead to me. Oh, what can be done for an old heart like mine? Soften it up with oil and wine. The oil is you, your spirit of love. Please wash me anew in the wine of your blood." You can't sing that song on Sunday morning. It's just a hard one. Like, some people are experiencing lament, some people aren't, but that song is just so powerful that it's so honest. So for me, music, it invites me into honesty. When I look at the songs that have shaped me the most, I think they are actually the lament songs. They're the human songs, not just the ones that kind of wisp by and are super fun and poppy, but the ones that like relate to my humanity and my need and my grief. And so I think those are actually my favorite songs. Those are the ones that I pull out that I need to pray or I need to think through or need to sing. Yeah, I love those.
The last 10, 12 years of my life, it's writing music and pouring out creativity and art has been a literal lifeline for me. It was in 2012. I had this kind of a weird series of events, but I signed my first ever like big publishing deal in April of 2012, and I kind of thought, oh, I'm going to be a big time Christian songwriter now or whatever, that, and that hasn't happened. But that happened in April of 2012, and then in May of 2012, my dad drowned in an accident he was fishing down the coast and he drowned, and shortly thereafter I just kind of fell into a pretty deep and kind of prolonged depression. And during that time I just wasn't good at anything, like I was a terrible friend, and I was not a good parent to my kids, and I was not a very good spouse to my wife. I was trying to be a pastor. I was on staff at a church. I was trying to do that. I wasn't good at that. The only thing I really could do in that time was write songs. And I tell people, I've always kind of considered songwriting to have these sort of two arms, these sort of two sides to it. And I call it inspiration and craft. So the idea that you're inspired, right? You hear a cool quote or a sermon, or you read something, or you go to the Grand Canyon, or you're just randomly in the shower, you get inspired, right? That's one side of it. The other side is craft. Can we do it? As a creative, can we do this thing, right? Do we know how to create? And when I was depressed and deeply in grief, I wasn't inspired at all, ever. I didn't feel inspiration much at all. If you've ever been had seasons of mental, emotional unhealth, you might relate to that. But I knew the craft of songwriting. I had worked on it. I'd given many years and many hours and a lot of effort and passion toward learning my craft. And so this is maybe going to sound weird, but I almost reversed the whole thing during those 4 or 5 years of my depression. I crafted because I knew how to make a song. And so I would make songs, I'd write songs knowing, well, I think this is what happiness feels like. I think this is what introspection feels like. This feels like what a song would sound like if it was trying to be, whatever, right? And so I wasn't being false. I was just using my craft. But then it's the inspiration could sort of come to it. It was almost like the way I describe it to people is it's almost like my emotions were like a plane running out of gas up in the air,
and I wrote songs to give those emotions a landing strip. Those songs became a tractor in a field, clearing a path, and cement mixer, and whatever the metaphor. I'm it's silly, but I'm just trying to say that for me, the idea of creativity and songwriting and music brought to my hurt, brought to my wounds, was life-saving. It was life-giving. And I've never created the same since that season. And so I don't know if this is even part of what you're looking for, but I would say this, when you feel hurt and grief and maybe even depression, create out of the skill you have. Don't wait to feel it, because in the beauty of God's omniscience, he's already letting you help him tell the story that you don't feel inspired to tell. And these deep wounds that we hold, I discovered later after I created these songs, these deep wounds that I was bringing to my music resonated with people, and people felt seen and known and understood and related to. And so anyway, like I said, I could talk for hours and hours, but I just wanted to say mostly that it doesn't have to be about inspiration all the time. It doesn't have to be about how much you feel it. Write so that you will feel just as much as write because you feel.
Some things in life are so intense that we can't process them with our rational brains. And I think art in general, but for me, music in particular, has been the art form that helps me the most in this. It helps connect to the emotional part of our intelligence. And I think sometimes we don't understand that emotional intelligence is really a thing. It's not just about feelings or something. Emotional intelligence is just as critical a form of intelligence as rational intelligence or remembering facts and figures. And when we're going through something that is not the way it's supposed to be, we need language for that. And that is what lament is. It's the language to help us express when things aren't the way they're supposed to be. The Psalms are songs. It's an entire song book, and it's loaded with songs of lament, because there's times when you can't just express in mere words the feelings and the thoughts you have about how broken everything is. You need to connect with something artistic. And music, sometimes just instrumental music, can take me into a place where those feelings that the rational part of my brain has tried to put into nice containers so that I can function and I can live. Music has a way of opening those containers, and you got to be careful where that happens. I've had that happen on airplanes, and I'm sitting next to strangers, and you lose it. I've had it happen in class when I'm talking to students, and the emotion, I could have it happen right this very moment, because just thinking about the power of music to connect in that way, I think that is where the Spirit wants to meet us, because that's where the truth is. And the less we stay connected to that brokenness, the less honest we are about our humanity and our journey. And God wants to meet us in all aspects of ourselves. And if we're not connected to lament and brokenness, then we're not being fully human, and we're not being fully honest.